Hi folks, Roland Martin here and welcome to my YouTube channel. You know, over the years, I know you listeners have enjoyed hearing my many stories about the old tournament trail experiences we had back in the 70s and 80s and in the grand old years of the formulation of modern day bass fishing. Well, Bob Cobb, the editor of Bassmaster magazine, wrote this exquisite book that really chronicles just about everything that there was going on back then. Now, Bob Cobb was the editor, and here he is, Bob. You can see Bob right here in this picture. He's with Ray Scott, and he was the editor for many years, and in fact, he helped do with the television series, and I worked with Bob on the tournament trail and the seminar trail. You know, Bob and I and Ray Scott and Harold Sharp and John Powell and I, we just traveled all over the country, say, for a whole year in 1971 when we went from Connecticut to California, and we grew our bass membership from 67,000 to 167,000. We got 100,000 members in just 1 year, 1971. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. But let's just go through the book, because there's every single story in here and every single picture has a story. Now, you know, speaking of really neat pictures, every picture that I look at, this was an iconic picture that Ray had of a bass. And that particular year, it was 1971, I'd gone out in the warm-up with my wife, Mary Ann, at the time, and I saw this great big giant bass. It was in the pre-fishing. And the pre-fishing rules are that you don't want to catch the fish. If you see a big fish on a bass bed, for example, let it go, because the tournament might start the next day and you can catch it and have the big bass. Well, that particular day, I saw this monster bass, this 10-pound 4-ounce or 10-pound 8-ounce bass. It was on a spawning bed. And it was the day before the tournament started. And I told Mary Ann, don't throw in there. I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to catch that fish. It's just a huge fish and maybe it'll be the big bass of the tournament. And I turned the boat around and I tell you what, I couldn't resist throwing in there. Like a dummy, I threw back and caught this bass, 10 pounds, 8 ounces. And that went in the tank the day before the tournament. And that's that iconic picture of Ray Scott holding that bass and kind of talking to the bass. That was really cool. Let's look at some more pictures. Look, there's Harold Sharp, Ray Scott, and I, and we're at the Bluebird bus. We had this big Bluebird bus, and man, there's some stories about the Bluebird bus you wouldn't believe. Like the time we were in Dallas at the 3rd or 4th seminar, and there was a switch on the dashboard of the Bluebird that said, "Do not push." And what it was an automatic discharge of sewer, an illegal discharge sewer system. And so Ray was looking at it. He was driving down Love Avenue at lunchtime, and all these lawyers and secretaries were getting off work, and they were walking down the street with suitcases and briefcases and all sorts of suits on and highly dressed. And Ray pushed the button on the sewer discharge, and this green poo water came flying out and hit all these people on the sidewalk. And they were yelling and calling the police and everything else. And here we are in this great big giant Bluebird bus. And we just started screaming. We checked side roads and every which way, and they never got our license. They never figured out where we were and who we were. But we got out of there quick. We would have been arrested and been still in jail. But anyway, okay, that was a good one. That was something else. Okay, you know, these early boats, only half of them were there. So when we went out the first day, we had to double up, and I went with Bob Ponds and we found a bunch of fish. And here's the takeoff. You notice then we had shotgun starts. Now that's too dangerous anymore. But then we had a shotgun start. Everybody lined up and everybody just went crazy and just went out there. And that was how it all started for 2 or 3 years. Plus we didn't have catch and release. That was the other big thing. So now without catch and release, see, that's Bobby Murray winning the tournament. He and I were roommates that time, and I helped him with some areas that he fished. But he won the tournament, and I came in pretty high at the big bass. But see, back then we didn't release fish. It was catch and kill. We gave all these fish to charity, and so then we have these stringers of shame. Now that we look at these big bass stringers that we used to talk about, we don't do that anymore, of course. In fact, I was really instrumental in developing the first live well. Forrest Wood saw how I had taken a compartment in one of my boats and put bilge pumps in there, and we'd converted it to a live well. So that was one of the. Then Forrest took that same concept and went about 10 steps farther and made aerated live wells for the boat. But I had the first, what you call live well, that I bring into the tournaments, and all of a sudden I'd come up to the weigh-in, even though I wasn't required to have live fish, all my fish were live. But then he'd throw them in a big boat and give them away to charity. But at least I showed everybody that you could keep fish alive. And then Forrest took it from there. Well, the year is still back early on, back in 1971, I'd moved to Tulsa, and I gotten married. And one of the guys that I met along the way was Don Butler out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there's Don and Ray and I with the Beaver Lake tournament. Don won the tournament. I came in second by, that was another story about how this guy had tried to net one of my fish, and he got the net caught in a fence, and I lost the fish. But anyway, that's a big story. But anyway, Don and I went fished together a lot, and then he won the second Bassmaster Classic on Percy Priest Reservoir. So that's the kind of thing. Again, there's old pictures of Don and one of his buddies with a big string of bass. And of course, we kept bass. We just kept them, and we ate them, and we gave them away. You know, it was kind of the thing to do back in the 60s and early 70s, 71 or 72. If you found out that they had released a fish, people would get mad at you. They said, "What do you mean throwing away those fish, getting those fish back? There's plenty of hungry people out there. You should have given them away to all these hungry people that need the food." Well, that's of course not the case anymore, but that was the early thought about keeping fish. If you didn't want them, give them to somebody that needed them. Okay, that was the thought. But we've now seen that that's to preserve big bass. Hey, you got to release fish. You know, one of the problems with some of the early Bassmaster Classics was they were held on a mystery lake, and therefore they couldn't get the big crowds involved, and they couldn't get the big sponsors involved. They couldn't set up a tackle venue and a tackle show because it was all a secret place to fish. So after 3 or 4 years of doing the Mystery Lake Classic, Ray quit doing that, and he started announcing where the Classic would be, and getting in a whole big outdoor show that surrounded the weigh-in activities. And the first weigh-ins at the first Classic got to be big events like this, where hundreds of people would show up, and there'd be a bunch of booths with all the different sponsors and advertisers showing it. It'd be a regular outdoor show, and it would be entertaining for all. People don't realize what a great entertainer Ray Scott is and was in his day. He hosted all the weigh-ins for all the different tournaments. And he was always on the brink of propriety. He was right on the edge of being really off color, but not quite, and telling all kind of not quite obscene things, but close to it. And everybody was on pins and needles that he was going to go over the edge, but he never did. He just always was proper, but just almost over the edge. Anyway, he did some crazy stuff, and he would entertain the people 100%. One of the things that he would do he would introduce the different contestants. Like he called Bo Dowden an ex-Olympic runner, which he wasn't an ex-Olympic runner. Bo Dowden wasn't. In fact, in one tournament, I had the Big Bass at Watts Bar, and I tied Bo Dowden in the Big Bass. So we're going to have a race to determine who was going to win the Bassmaster Award for having Big Bass. And so we lined up. Of course, I was a football player in high school and tennis player in college, and so I was pretty fast. I was fast. And Bo, even though they said he was an Olympic runner, hadn't run a speck in his life. He couldn't run his way out of a paper bag. So the race started. Of course, I won by about 20 feet. But everybody was betting on Bo because they thought he was an Olympic runner, and he wasn't. He was just no kind of runner. But I won Big Bass Award because I beat Bo in a foot race that Ray Scott put on. That was something. I'm telling you, folks, Ray Scott was something else. Now here's an interesting photo, and it's a photo of me weighing in some bass. But the caption reads, here's a neat caption. It says, Roland Martin captured the bass win. Let's see, what does it say? Let me see. It says, Roland Martin captured 19 bass wins in his career, but on July 69, I witnessed Rip Nunnery weighing in a staggering 98 pounds, 15 ounces for 15 bass. That's a 6.5 pound bass average. And Roland felt he had no place to challenge the pro. So at that point, when I saw Rip Nunnery weigh in the fish, I wasn't in the tournament. I was just there at Eufaula, Alabama, watching Rip Nunnery weigh in the fish. I felt so intimidated I felt like I have no place that I've never seen bass like that. I never saw 15 bass all over 6 pounds. Weighed in, that's the kind of weigh-in we had then, and we kept them and killed them all. It was a sinful. But anyway, I felt like I was just going to go back to the swamps of South Carolina and not fish any tournaments because these guys were too good. And so Ray saw me leave. He saw me start to leave the weigh-in area, and he said, where are you going, Roland? I said, Ray, these guys are too good. I saw some stringers of bass come in that I've never been able to catch. He said, no, don't leave. There is humility. You'll see plenty of guys weigh in that won't have any fish at all, and it'll change your mind. You need to come and fish these tournaments. So I stayed around. He talked me into staying for it, and sure enough, I saw some people come in with just next to nothing, which is expected in tournaments. You have good and bad. And so I went ahead and signed up for a tournament in January, but I almost didn't ever fish a tournament because it was so intimidating seeing Rip Nunnery with that almost 100 pounds of bass. Okay. You know, one of the things that I never did do was I never won a Bassmaster Classic. Now here I came in second in 1980, and that's Bo Dowden and I, and he won the tournament. I came in second, just a pound or so behind him. And there's a big story about that, about how he caught a bass that I was trying to catch, and so if I'd caught it, I would have won. But anyway, I was Angler of the Year that year as well, and but I was in also second place. So I had a great time fishing the classics. I just never won one. Okay. Now here's what used to happen. Here's kind of a whole big page of stuff that I've done. Different awards that I had, Bass Angler of the Year awards. I'm doing all sorts of stuff with Ray there. I got a big check from Stren. Back then, and if you notice that whatever year that was a Stren award. Angler of the Year was only, that was 1984. In 1984, the Angler of the Year only paid $2,500. Now it pays over $100,000. I think it's $150,000. So anyway, that was some of the awards that I had. My biggest thing in tournament fishing, of course, wasn't the 19 wins that I had or the 19 second places that I had, but it was the 9-time Angler of the Year awards. And here I am weighing in another bunch of fish. So in this book, I'm really well documented. Bob Cobb and I are just great, and he always took good pictures of me, and I had such a good career that I have to say that I'm a big part of the book, and I thank Bob Cobb for documenting what he documented. Well, folks, you have to admit that book is full of a lot of rich memories, and thank you Bob Cobb for doing just an excellent job chronicling those early years. And so, folks, I hope you enjoyed these stories. Hope you enjoyed my YouTube channel. But I tell you what makes it all go round. When O'Reilly's and Bass Pro Shop and Spike It and all my good friends at Favorite and all the different companies at Frog Talk, okay, they like the likes. When you hit the likes, it kind of reflects in the contracts and stuff that we get and how my relationship is with the industry. So the more you hit the likes button, the more credit I get, and the more everything works. So I appreciate your support. Support me as well, and thank you very much. And hey, we'll see you again soon.